Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss about standards. Nowadays, standards are essential for good documentation. For example, every company would definitely have a sort of manual by which they would be able to tell their employees what to do in certain circumstances. For example, suppose in a company there is a fire manual. In the fire manual, they talk about how employees are supposed to react when fire occurs. A typical example would be a portion on the wall, a glass in which there is a hammer, and it is written there, in case of fire, break glass. So as a training, the employees would be given to understand that in the case of a fire, instruction on how to use the fire extinguisher. Certain fire extinguishers need to be turned upside down so that the foam will come, and also the foam has to be sprayed directly into the fire and not above the fire. There may also be instances of where you should assemble if there is a fire. There might be a exit steps. Not supposed to use the escalator or elevator. You are supposed to go down the steps. There should be no blocks, stumbling blocks on the steps, and you must arrange yourselves in an open place. So these are all specific things that a particular company might have and give you as a fire drill. So you are experienced and you know how to react when there is a fire. The new employee is given a manual. Nowadays it is in the form of a website, and in this website all these things are explained. So the Alltech Soft project documentation is another example. Here they talk about the project initiation, the planning, the launch, the execution, and the release. There may be a time for a particular project, might be given, let's say 3 months, and what are the things required is clearly stated, so that a new employee, once he or she comes into the office, everything is detailed. So this sort of standards is what a document should provide. What type of terminology should be used in that particular office, and how the documentation should be presented and laid out. If you can see here, they are laid out as sort of bullet points but encased in rectangular elements, and the color also is sort of suitable to the company. In terms of industry standards, there are standards that each industry has. For example, there is an ISO 9001 standard for hospitals and things like that. The same way, colleges have a standard which is the NAAC accredited framework. So these standards of documentation require clarity, which means that you should be able to understand everything without any confusion. It should be simple language. That means the English should be easily understood. Number 3, you should avoid jargons. That is, very complex words should not be said. Instead of that, you should use simple words. And this should also be indexed. Just like a textbook has chapters in the beginning, the manual also should be arranged chapter wise, or in modern format we should say that it should be well mapped. Now the attributes for good documentation is that there will be listings of the chapter and possibly a small explanation as to what is going to happen in this particular chapter. For example, if you look into our professional business skills, you will find that in this particular book you have chapters arranged as professionalism, chapter 1, chapter 2 is e-learning, chapter 3 is business data analytics. So with chapter 1 you understand that all professionalism related elements would be included in that particular chapter. And for e-learning, whatever is required that you need to study for e-learning, they are included in chapter 2. So a content listing should be available, which is one good attribute for good documentation. Then the purpose should also be there. That means the user should be able to access quickly whatever information they need. And also the navigation tools must be very simple. It must be very easy to navigate using a mouse so that they will be able to get the required information very quickly. Documentation should be accurate. There should be no mistake regarding that. And the accessibility, especially with respect to the headings, the font, all of them should be standardized so that it will be easily understood by anyone who is reading the documents. And of course, it should be clear. The clarity should be there so that the meanings will be understood. It should also be concise. That means it should not be a very long document. Complete and comprehensive in the sense that everything should be there. Whatever doubts that the person has, a new employee has, everything should be included in that particular documentation. Finally, it should be consistent. As I said before, the headings should have the same font. The type that is used throughout the document should be, if it is, let's say, Times New Roman 12, it should be the same. The heading may be Times New Roman 14 and things like that. So this is what is meant by standards in any document. So this is what is known as standards and the attributes for good documentation. Thank you. Please do subscribe.